You're listening to ADHD Support Talk. ADHD Support Talk is brought to you by addclasses.com. Visit www.addclasses.com and sign up for helpful online resources and events today. I want to welcome you back to ADHD Support Talk. I am your co-host, Lynne Edris, and I am a productivity and ADHD coach. So I help overwhelmed professionals reduce procrastination, improve time management, and get more done with less effort so that they have more time and energy for the things that matter most to them. It's really all about fulfillment and freedom, not just crossing more crap off some to-do list every day. I am a woman with ADHD myself, guys, so I have been where so many of my clients are and where so many of you may be right now, and I've come out the other side, so to speak. I always say ADHD doesn't go away. You're not going to cure it, but you sure can learn to live well with it. And I believe that you could share the same success yourself. You can learn more about me and what I do and the programs and services I offer at www.coachingadvantages.com. And today I have with me Tamara Rosier, and I am so excited. Tamara is one of my favorite ADHD peeps. Always fun when we get together. We just spent the last however many minutes catching up before we hit record. I want to welcome you, Tamara. Tell our listeners a little bit about you, where they can learn more about what you do, connect with you, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, Lynn, it's good to see you. I love seeing your face every time I see it. I'm Tamara Rosier. I've written 2 books now. Your Brain's Not Broken is the first book. And the second book is You, Me, and Our ADHD Family. And today we're going to be talking about some things that I mentioned in that book. I lead a fantastic staff at the ADHD Center of West Michigan. And you can find out more about that at www.miadhd.com.
Awesome. So we are going to talk about families and relationships and ADHD and all that fun stuff. So where do you want to jump in?
Okay, Lynn, everyone's part of a family.
Yeah.
And something we know about ADHD is it is highly hereditary. Are you aware of how hereditary it is?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So Barkley, he suggests that if you have a father with ADHD, the offspring of the father is 80 to 90% likely to have ADHD.
Wow.
If mom has ADHD, it's 60 to 70. So that's a lot.
Wow. Yeah,
and that means we've got to start talking about ADHD in families. Absolutely. And this isn't a podcast about parenting. This is a podcast of those people you're related to, those guys. So I don't know about you. I have ADHD.
Yep.
I'm remarried to a man who has ADHD, and we have 4 children. 3 of them have ADHD, all girls, and 1 does not. And that 1 child has been deeply affected by the rest of us.
Absolutely.
The title of my first chapter is called Welcome to the Goat Rodeo, because I think about it. Just think back through your family life.
Absolutely.
Isn't it a goat rodeo?
It is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I have 2 kids. I've been married for 36 years. I have a son with ADHD and a daughter that does not have ADHD, but my family of origin, my family, I have 3 sisters. Both of my parents, I am certain, have ADHD, and I'm pretty sure at least 3 of the 4 of us girls have ADHD. So goat rodeo really resonates with me. Just saying.
Yeah.
That not my circus, not my monkeys. It was my circus and they were my monkeys.
And that's exactly, we have to start talking about families when we're talking about ADHD, because ADHD happens in a context. In other words, my ADHD symptoms will get worse under certain situations and not as bad under others. So when I'm on vacation, I don't have to get to dinner fast. There's no real time crunch for me. Time blindness is one of my biggest ADHD foibles, right? And I say foibles because it just feels like I'm stuck in this caricature of myself with time blindness. Like, it's so exhausting. because the time blindness is so frustrating for me.
Absolutely.
But it is one of my biggest symptoms. But when I'm on vacation, doesn't matter, right? However, if I'm seeing 5 clients in a day at my office and I'm running late, that's stressful. And so
Absolutely.
ADHD has everything to do with environment. And then I go home and, oh, by the way, I don't know about you, I look like a nice little grown up. And then I go home and I wrote about this in the book. So one time I go home, I've been such a delightful grown up all day. People have been telling me their problems. I've been asking these deep questions. Great coaching day. I walk in, my husband says something. I just respond with, that's a stupid idea. Like after all this good behavior I've had.
You used it all up.
I used it all up. And in just a moment, I make this stupid comment of, that's stupid. I would never say that outside my home.
Absolutely.
And that's another reason why we have to talk about this.
Absolutely.
Is because home is where we act really with our guard down. And so those of you who are parents go, yeah, I always hear that from my kids' teachers, that they're great kids.
Right.
I wish I saw them at home. And wives of husbands will go, yeah, my husband's a pastor and he's so nice to everyone, except for us. And so home is where you really are, and you're really yourself.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
And a lot of ugly. Yeah. And I wrote this book because we're related to people and we have to figure out how to do that well. And so I'm talking like a 30-something-year-old who might be listening to this going, yeah, I think my mom has ADHD and she's crazy. How do I even relate to her? Or, gosh, I wish my dad would spend time with me and he's ADHD. We don't even have the relationship we want. Really, today we're talking about wherever you are in a family.
Absolutely. And guys, we've also got to navigate those non-biological relationships as well. So if you're living in a family where you're not all, the in-laws and maybe stepchildren, maybe how do you say it? Like half siblings, or there's so many different kind of iterations of family. And sometimes your friends become the family you choose. But we've got to navigate all of these things. And when ADHD is part of the mix, to say that it can be more challenging is like, it's not even an understatement. I'm laughing because it's laughable.
It's a gross understatement.
It's a gross understatement.
Right.
Yes, it is.
And that's where I really wanted to write this book, You, Me, and Our ADHD Family, because I was working with families in my office and I saw that they loved each other, but they were hurting each other.
Yeah.
And there's some basic rules you can learn to follow that make it better. And sometimes I only get to work with the teens. I teach them how to live better in their families. Sometimes I work with the parents. Sometimes I even work with grandparents. What am I seeing? Help me understand.
Yeah.
So this book is dedicated to anyone who happens to be related to someone.
Which is pretty much everybody.
Yeah, which is most everybody.
And more than probably everyone listening to this podcast. So you mentioned some rules to follow. Tell me what you mean. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I was a little nervous writing the first half of this book because the first half of the book is all about getting your own stuff together. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
It's fine with me.
Okay, so I won't use the big words, but my publisher doesn't like when I swear. It's the first half of the book is getting your shit together.
Yes.
In other words, you make sure you're balanced. If there's a whole chapter on what to do with emotions, and some of us believe our emotions too much. Some of us ignore our emotions. We make all kinds of mistakes with emotions. We don't take responsibility for our emotions. So those are some things that the first half of the book is all get yourself together. One of the concepts I talk about is don't have discussions, if you're in survival thinking.
I really like that. Don't have discussions when you're in survival thinking. I think that's a really good
Yeah.
point to remember. In
Yeah,
any
so-
relationship, whether we're talking about the people that you live with
Right.
on a day-to-day basis or at work or the cashier at the checkout line, don't have conversations when you're in survival thinking.
Exactly. So quickly, what survival thinking is, it's when you're just thinking literally of what do I have to do? What's coming at me? And you're in this reactive mode,
Mm-hmm.
right? Survival is all about reaction
Right.
and reaction time. Transformational thinking is when you can take a beat, get some perspective. What are we doing here? This is how I'm feeling about this. Oh, I bet they have other feelings than I do. There's perspective taking, right? And I go into it deeper, but transformational thinking, by the way, that's an ideal. We don't live in transformational thinking. Okay. After this podcast, I'm going to jump in the car and drive home in 5 o'clock traffic. And I'm stuck on this road. And I'm going to have to go, okay, stay in transformational thinking. And I'll forget that 20 seconds later and go, what the heck? So survival thinking is not bad. It's just we need to do survival thinking at the right time. Me yelling at traffic is a waste of survival thinking, right? Survival thinking is supposed to keep us safe.
Absolutely.
But we're humans. And so we're going to give ourselves a break, that we're not always in transformational. We're not always our best selves. But I know I'm going to try to give my family my best self when it's necessary. So here's what this looks like. I come home and my husband says, hey, here's my idea. And if I'm just in from a whole bunch of traffic, I say, hey, I need to take a pause on that. I'm not really in a good place to talk about your dumb idea. No, I don't say that, do I? No, I'm not in a good place to talk about the idea.
But you can think it really hard.
Yeah. Can we pick it up after I have something to eat?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's me being aware of myself going, okay, I'm in survival thinking just because I have that kind of brain and I'm really irritated. Does that make sense? So
it makes
one
perfect sense. And then that can translate to, I always talk with my clients about, like, when things don't go well, it doesn't do a whole lot of good for you to play them over and over again in your head, unless you're looking for something that you can improve or that you can learn that can make things better in the future. So that could be an opportunity when you realize, gosh, we get into a lot of unpleasant conversations, spats, fights, whatever, arguments. I get pissed off a lot in the first few minutes when I get home from work. Let's try together to negotiate this thing where we give me 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Or you see me sitting in the driveway, and truth, I've done this lots of times. You see me sitting in the driveway for 5 to 10 minutes before I pull into the garage. Please leave me there. I'm sitting there for a reason. I may be on the phone, but the odds are really good that I'm just trying to get my shit together after a long day so that I can transition into mom, wife, happy person to be occupying the same space as you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's what I'm talking about on making sure you manage yourself.
Yeah.
Something else I talk about is evaluating yourself. Are you truly a safe person for other people?
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, if people have to walk around eggshells or manage you, you're not safe. And a lot of people think they're safe, and they're not. I know we hear a lot about, oh, that person's not safe for me, that person's not safe for me, but it's in your family, are you a safe person for others?
Yeah. Wow.
Here's what I love, though. When you are a safe person for others, that's where relationships just blossom. I had a client who talked about his grandmother was a safe person for him. And he would go to her house after school and just tell her things. And they had a deep, rich relationship. Why? She was safe.
Yeah.
And she allowed him to be who he was. And so the first half of the book is really about hey, let's get your stuff together first. Let's not just put the onus on everyone else that they have to be perfect for you. You don't have to be perfect. You have to just own your own stuff.
Absolutely. So how can you tell if you're not a safe person for someone else?
There's a quiz in the book.
Okay, that's
that
awesome.
I literally have a quiz, and I want people to go back and look at that quiz again and again, because sometimes we just get a bug in our behind and we just want to dig in. We want to, this person's mad. Or sometimes I'm just so worried about this person. They're not making good choices. I'm angry with them. How can I be a safe person in the midst of all that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That doesn't mean condoning behavior.
No.
It means, how am I managing my own behavior?
Absolutely. So I started this when my kids were really little and I was anxious. And when you're a parent of a child with ADHD, probably a parent of any child, but my first one had ADHD. So that's all I knew. The stress and the emotions and the wanting to help them and still trying to get your own shit together just really makes for this kind of anxious undertone that I felt like I carried around a lot when my kids were younger. And I used to ask myself, when I would feel strong emotion about something, like, who is this really about? Meaning, is this about me and my stuff? Is this about me wanting to show up in the way that I think I should show up? Is this me wanting the best for them? Is this me being anxious? Who is this really about? Because when we can really honestly look at our behavior and our emotions and the way we're showing up and own that, okay, I overreacted to that because I had a rough day, or I overreacted to that because this particular thing is a button for me. And when I was growing up, I couldn't talk to my parents that way, or whatever it is that is your kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say baggage, but it is like your baggage, but also your emotions and your anxieties and your fears, and your worries and your beliefs, and all of that get tangled up with how you're showing up for the other person. I think that is an indication that you may not necessarily be the safe person for them that you want to be.
So I want to add to that question. What is this you're asking, doing this analysis? What is this really about? Something else I talk about in the book. Am I over-functioning for a person?
Yeah.
And allowing them to underfunction, or am I underfunctioning?
It's another good question. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just to tell your listeners what overfunctioning is, doing something for someone else that they could do for themselves. It's just, you just love them so gosh darn much, you'll just do it. Or you just don't want a hassle of doing it. I have a client who, she's 30. She just moved back into the state. She's going to move out of her family's house again, but she's home right now. And all of a sudden she's overfunctioning for the family, which means she's cooking and cleaning. She's doing all this stuff. They're like, we missed you. And she's like, yeah, how did you guys survive without me? They're using her to overfunction right now. And underfunctioning is the opposite. It's when we don't do what we're capable of. Now, let's be honest. We've all been on the couch, not wanting to get up, going, oh, honey, can you just bring me this? Okay. And that's fair. I'm not trying to call that. Okay. But underfunctioning is when, someone opens up the refrigerator and goes, where's the ketchup? And they expect someone to come running over
and hand them the ketchup. Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry I didn't buy the ketchup with feet that comes running to you. But that's a tiny form of underfunctioning. But underfunctioning is, that's actually what happened in my family. I have 4 daughters, like I said. My middle daughter decided she didn't like to cook. And so she would go, oh, I hate to make grilled cheese, but I want grilled cheese, but I burn it every time I make it. Her youngest sister, who's 7 years younger than she is, would go, I'll make it for you.
Yeah.
So we have someone who's 11 years old making grilled cheese for an 18-year-old who sure as heck could do it herself. The 18-year-old was, I don't want to do it. And there's always, where there's an underfunctioner, look for the overfunctioner.
Absolutely.
Because it's a system.
Absolutely.
And you'll see this at Thanksgiving. If your listeners go home and you look around going, oh, I see the underfunctioners. I see the overfunctioners.
And it is situational. It's definitely varies by relationship. It varies by role.
Yep.
As you're talking about this, I'm thinking of all of these different things with my kids growing up and just my family in general. And it cracks me up. And in some ways, one person could be the over functioner in one area, and then another person be the over functioner to their under functioner in another area. So you know, the way we develop our relationships it's complex and it's deep, but it's also changeable, right? Just because you've related with someone in a certain way, or you've created a certain dynamic in a relationship or in a household or whatever, that doesn't mean that you're doomed to that for the rest of your lives.
No, but the key is what's got to change first? It's the person who wants the change.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've got to work on it themselves first, which means your ADHD symptoms have to be in check. You're taking responsibility when your ADHD symptoms spill on people, right? And you're aware of your own emotional state. Then you can start to do the work that needs to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it really does start with getting your shit together. And that doesn't mean that your stuff has to be perfectly together.
No.
Right? Just sufficiently together. Better, not perfect.
Yeah. So there's sometimes when we screw up.
Yeah.
And here's what I've noticed with my ADHD clients. They don't know how to make it right. And so there's 3 things I want people to do to try to make it right. Because we're going to screw up and we love each other, but we need to make it right because that's how we build relationships. The first thing you do is you do a reach. And reach is, hey, Lynn, do you have a second to talk? That's a reach. And by the way, if you're still really pissed about what I said, right, you can go, I see your reach, but I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And so the reach is a really important thing because it's a very tentative, hey, can we talk about what just happened? I am surprised at how many of my clients will just skip over the reach.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, la, 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 nothing happened. Let's just move on.
Yes.
And I'm talking about grown people doing this stuff.
Absolutely.
I've seen it in my own in-laws telling stories now, but where someone will have a blow up. We just act like it never happened. So you have to do that first step. That's reach. And I always give the other person a chance to go, not yet. I'm not by myself yet. I see what you're doing though. Thank you. Let me circle back. So the second step is the repair step. And repair is trying to fix what you broke.
Yeah.
By the way, to your listeners, I've always joked that Lynn looks more like my sister than my sister looks like my sister. So I think we look a lot alike, and I'm pretty sure we're related somehow.
Somehow.
So let's say she and I are sisters, and we just fought about, I borrowed her bathing suit and I wasn't supposed to. Ew, gross, right? But sisters do that kind of stuff all the time.
They do. We do. Yes.
Yep. And so Liz, I don't want to talk to you. You wrecked my suit. And so I would do a reach, and then the repair, I am really sorry. I did not intend for that. Now, what I wouldn't say is what sisters say to each other. You shouldn't be so uptight about it. That's all wrong. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm sorry. And then part of the repair is, how can I make this right?
Yes.
And it's up to the other person not to be a jerk about how to make it right. Because you could say, as my sister, buy me 10 bathing suits next season. Well,
or that one really expensive one that I want.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, by the way, guys, listeners, sisters hold each other hostage all the time with this kind of stuff. And it's why we do reach, repair, and reconnect in our family.
Awesome.
So the repair is, how do we fix this?
Awesome. And remember, there's no but in any of this. There's never an I'm
Right.
sorry, but. That is one of my biggest communication
Yep.
things. Just the minute you say but, you just absolutely negate whatever you say after it. So I'm really
Nope.
sorry, but I was tired. I'm
Nope.
really sorry, but
Nope.
you did whatever. Or
Yep.
anytime the word but comes into it, you're not repairing anything.
Yep.
You're making excuses
No.
and you're negating
Right.
the reach and the repair.
Yep. And the repair, the whole focus of the repair is, I did something to you and I want to fix it.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, this takes humility to do, which is why the first part of the book is so darn important, because you got to get your own shit together first. Then the last step is reconnect. And the reconnect is a very important point, because what we're saying is, I value you.
Yeah.
Can we hang out? Can we go for a bike ride together now? Are we good to be together now?
Yeah.
And what I've noticed from my ADHD clients, some don't like conflict. So bad things will happen and they'll just jump to reconnect. You want to go for a bike ride? People are like, no, you broke something. Or they'll be like, okay, I'm sorry. Can we just get past it? So they're trying to do a sloppy repair. And so I want to help ADHD folks fix what they break. And we're all stupid to our family members at some point.
We are. Yes, absolutely.
I'm not proud of that. I'm not always my best self. And so things pop out of my mouth. And this is incredibly important. My hope is that families will actually pass the book around their family and talk about it. And so that they can go, hey, I see that reach. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not ready yet. Or that there's someone who reads the book and can teach their family, hey, Dad, when I do this, that's a reach. And it's up to you to go, I'm ready or I'm not ready. And Dad, when I do this, I'm trying to make a repair. People can affect their family systems with this kind of behavior.
I love that simplifying it to 3 practical steps that you can easily remember is, I think that's huge. It's good communication. It's good relationship, whether you're talking about the family you were born into or the people you work with, people on your team at work. I think this applies to so much. And the whole tendency for so many of us with ADHD to want to move past or distract ourselves from the unpleasant work that needs to be done with the reach and the repair and the reconnect again, this is something that is really important. Again, whether you're talking about a married couple or a family that lives together or your roommates or your parents who are across the country or siblings or friends or coworkers or anybody.
And I've got grown kids. So I love them. I love spending time with them. But now they're grown kids who think for themselves. What is up with that? No one signed up for that business. So they run their lives. And so I need to have ways of reconnecting when things don't go well.
Right. And that common language that you can all share to make the changes that you want to make. Awesome. This is really good stuff.
And I just want to say something here. I didn't write this book because I came from a perfect family. My family of origin was the Drunken Goat Rodeo. And because I came from such a messed up system, I was on a mission. And I was on a mission to go, how can I figure this out? How can I do this? And I want to make sure your listeners understand I screwed up plenty. And this book is about if I could have a time machine to go back and say, Tamara, it would have been nice if you could do these things. Yeah. I wish you would have known about ADHD, Tamara. So it's not about that I come from a perfect family being all idealistic. It's because I have the bruises and the cuts from being in a bad family. And I wanted to do better.
And help other people do better. So any last thoughts you want to leave with our listeners, and then tell our listeners again where they can learn more about you. And again, the names of your books. As we're recording this, the You, Me, and Our ADHD Family has not quite yet been released. So
Right.
I'm really excited about that. It's coming up soon.
Yep. September 24 is when it's
Okay.
out.
Okay. Awesome.
And yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I love talking with you. Thanks
Right
for
back
letting
at
me
you.
use you as my sister in the example. I just want to encourage listeners, because families are difficult and they're exhausting a lot of times,
Mhm.
but they're also the people that can really enrich our lives.
Absolutely.
And I know you and your sisters have complex relationships, but you're close, aren't you?
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
if this book can help one family member kind of figure out where he or she fits and how to interact with different family members, that's my goal.
And I think that's a great goal, because I think if you just improve one relationship,
Yeah.
nobody's lives are perfect. I'm always
No.
very aware that I don't want my clients or my listeners to think that I have all this shit figured out.
Right.
There's plenty of, whatever you want to call it, dysfunction or whatever, in every family,
Yeah.
because human beings are
Absolutely.
not perfect. So together en masse, we're really not perfect. But what can we do to make it better? How can I improve things? And every time you make a move to make something a little bit better, I do think that those ripples, they keep going out, and that can really change things.
Yeah.
So tell our listeners again where they can learn more about you and connect with you.
Yep. My website is www.miadhd.com.
Awesome.
And that's the website for the ADHD Center of West Michigan. And I have a fabulous staff, guys. They're amazing, they're talented, and I just so respect them. My books are available anywhere books are sold.
And the first one is Your Brain's Not Broken. I highly recommend that as well. And
Yes.
I can't wait to read
Thanks.
the second one. Thank you so much for being here, Tamara. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate you being with me. You can connect with us in the ADHD Support Talk Facebook community. Please feel free to join us, ask questions, share your thoughts, ideas, suggestions. And again, I do always appreciate your attention. Thanks again, Tamara. It's always great to see you.
Thanks, Lynn.